Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this In the Circle event. My name's Nick Helm. I'm an infrastructure partner at Squire Patton Boggs. We're an international law firm, and I'm based in our Manchester office. So sustainability, net zero, green issues are all now daily discussion points and factors for all businesses to be taking into account. But in this session in particular, we're going to focus on hydrogen and the opportunities for the hydrogen economy in the Northwest. So going back to November, December, you might recall Boris's stated ambitions for a green industrial revolution, his 10-point plan with hydrogen to be a key part of that, 50 gigawatts of green hydrogen production by 2030. And with ancillary ambitions around hydrogen as a fuel for transport, domestic boilers, so not just industrial applications. So against that backdrop, let me introduce or pass you on to our panel of speakers as we run through today's session. So if I might invite each of them to introduce themselves, first of all, Michaela.
Hi, I'm Michaela Kendall. I'm CEO of Adelan. We're a fuel cell business based in Birmingham, and we've been contributing and leading the hydrogen economy for 25 years now. So well established, and we run the Midlands Fuel Cell and Hydrogen Network, but also contribute to the national picture, the hydrogen economy.
Fantastic. Amma.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm Amma. I'm the director of the Manchester Fuel Cell Innovation Centre at Manchester Metropolitan University. We're a £4.1 million technology hub that has supported over 80 regional-based SMEs with their innovation journeys through to hydrogen and fuel cell ambitions. We're also members of the Greater Manchester Energy Innovation Agency, which is, we're trying to see the role hydrogen can play in the energy transition of the region. And we support the skills pathway for Net Zero Northwest. And our sort of introduction to skills is working through the businesses that we support through to the academic sector that we are fully trying to support to develop this economy out. Thank you.
Great, thank you. David.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon, everybody. So my name's Dave Parkin. I am one of the directors at a small clean energy project development company called Progressive Energy. Most of you will probably know us, if you do know us, in the Northwest, because we are the lead developer for the Highnet Project, which I'll come on and talk about a lot over the course of this session, I'm sure. So yeah, we exist really to decarbonise at scale. That's our sole purpose in life. We're a purpose-driven organisation. Prior to joining Progressive about 3 years ago, I was Network Strategy Director at National Grid Gas and then at Cadent, where I started my journey on decarbonisation of all these hard-to-reach sectors of the economy, which hydrogen can reach.
Great, thank you. And lastly, Paul.
Thanks, Nick. Yes, I'm Paul Ladislaus. I'm the Senior Process Engineer at First Graphene Limited. First Graphene is an Australian company based out of Western Australia with our manufacturing facilities in Perth. But we specifically located ourselves in Manchester, and I'll talk about that a bit later, about some of the benefits that brings. We are the world's largest graphene manufacturing company, and we supply graphene into a range of really exciting products and technologies. But we are currently running a range of products and research and development programs that are directly linked to the hydrogen economy, and some of these are funded by the UK government, and we're making really good progress.
Great, thank you, Paul. So great panel, I think, covering the range of the sector, both from macro through to micro, looking at startups as well. So if I might, first of all, invite David to talk a little bit about the Highnet project and maybe to set the scene.
Fabulous, thanks, Nick. Can I just check that people can see my screen?
Yes,
yeah.
I can see that, yes.
Perfect, great. Okay, well, Nick's very kindly given me just a couple of slides just to set a bit of context to the Highnet project, because it is a large hydrogen delivery project focused in the Northwest. But I guess just a little bit of context, and many of you will be familiar with this, but the UK is doing phenomenally well at decarbonisation. Indeed, there was a point last year where we had hit a magical 50% reduction since 1990, 50% reduction since 1990 levels. But there is a big but to that. And the but is that we've largely achieved our decarbonisation by decarbonisation of electricity, which is great. So we have built lots of offshore wind. We've turned off lots of coal-fired power generation, lots of solar on the system now. So the carbon intensity of our electricity system is much, much lower. But electricity actually only comprises about somewhere between a quarter and a third of our total energy use as a nation. So you need to do a lot more than decarbonising just electricity. The other way that we have decarbonised the country is we have deindustrialised to quite a large extent. So a lot of our emissions associated with industry have disappeared. But the next 50% of emissions reduction we need to tackle over the next 30 years are harder. So this is what we call sort of the hard to reach sector of the economy. So these are things like industry, it is domestic heat, it is heavy transport, it's flexible power generation. And about 4 or 5 years ago, when I was working for National Grid and subsequently for Cadent, the gas distribution network, we very much recognised the role which hydrogen at scale had to play in decarbonising an energy system. And it was out of that thinking back in 2016 that Highnet was born. So Highnet's been in development for about 5 years now. It is rapidly gathering momentum. And on the next slide, I'm just going to talk through what it looks like in the context of the regional geography and just say a little bit more about sort of where the project is actually at. So here we go. So those of you from the Northwest, and I hope that's the majority of you, should recognise your geography here. But Heiner is centred on the Ellesmere Port area. So it is south bank of the Mersey, Ellesmere Port to Runcorn, that sort of industrial complex around there. Is producing low carbon, low cost hydrogen at scale. And what we always say about Heiner is this is not a pilot project, it's not a demonstration, it's not a trial, this is large scale infrastructure to make a material difference to both regional and national emissions. So at the Stanley Refinery, Stanley Manufacturing Centre, we are going to produce low carbon hydrogen. Now we're going to do that through a process called autothermal reforming. And essentially what we do is we take natural gas in as an input, or we can use what's called refinery off gas from the refinery, which is a waste product from the refinery. And then we convert that into clean hydrogen and into carbon dioxide, which are waste products. And I'll talk about what we're going to do with the carbon dioxide in a minute. But we're going to produce large volumes of low carbon hydrogen through this manufacturing process. And this is called blue hydrogen. Contrasting with green hydrogen, which is hydrogen produced by renewable electricity and electrolysis. But Highnet at the moment is focused on blue, but the infrastructure which we're developing, which I'll talk about, is colour agnostic. So as more green hydrogen becomes available, as the cost comes down, we expect to see more green hydrogen connect to Highnet. So once we produce this hydrogen, what do we do with it? Well, for our first hydrogen production plant, most of the hydrogen will be used on site at the refinery and in local industry. And industries will fuel switch away from natural gas, which they use today, to low carbon hydrogen, which will significantly reduce their emissions profile. We will then build out a pipeline network across the Northwest, which is the white network you see here. So we're partnered with Cadent, the gas distribution network, to build that. We're going to run roughly sort of east up the Manchester Ship Canal, up towards Trafford, Carrington, that sort of area, up into Manchester City region. That's going to pick up all the major industrial users along that sort of industrial corridor. It's going to pick up a lot of the major power stations. So just last week, we announced a press release with Intergen, who own and operate the Rock Savage power station near Runcorn. So they're going to switch from natural gas to hydrogen to be able to deliver low carbon, flexible power. We're going to run north up into Liverpool City. We're partnered with Pilkington Glass up in St Helens and numerous other major industrials. We're going to be trialling large-scale hydrogen use at Pilkington Glass this summer in the next few weeks. And then we're going to run a pipeline south, and we're going to run that down to salt cavern storage in Cheshire. So we're partnered with Innovin, part of the INEOS group for that. And the reason being is that demand profile for hydrogen is not flat. We produce hydrogen through a manufacturing process which is flat, but the demand for hydrogen goes up and down. So when you turn your boilers on, when power stations turn on, so to manage that supply and demand differential, we need storage. We're going to do that in underground salt caverns in Cheshire, utilising well-established technology, and that will then allow us to balance supply and demand. Over time, we're going to extend that hydrogen network sort of further out into Wales. So we're going to come into Wrexham, we're going to come into North Wales, we're going to go out into the Wirral, picking up other industrials. And so by 2030, we think we have the opportunity to displace half of natural gas usage across the Northwest by the Highnet hydrogen distribution network. Now, that's all well and good. What do we do with the carbon dioxide? So we're going to store that permanently through a process called carbon capture and storage. We're going to sequester it under the seabed in Liverpool Bay. So our partners there are the Italian oil and gas company, Eni. They currently own gas production facilities in Liverpool Bay. They cease production in the next couple of years. They are perfect stores for long-term storage of carbon dioxide. So we're going to repurpose the existing infrastructure in Liverpool Bay, so existing reservoirs, wells, platforms, pipelines, and that is going to be repurposed for carbon dioxide, which is going to flow out from Highnet out to Liverpool Bay. So where are we at? Well, up to this point, we've spent about £40 million over the last 4 years developing this. We've just announced another £70 million of investment, so about half of that from government, half from our partners. That will see us get to a final investment decision on our hydrogen production plant, our hydrogen pipeline, and our carbon dioxide infrastructure by 2023, which will see Highnet operating at scale from 2025. We'll continue to build it out until 2030 and beyond with expansion projects, and we will be looking at upwards of about £2 billion of capital expenditure to get there. So hugely exciting project, really exciting time. We're deep into consenting. We just launched our first public consultation, huge amount of momentum, and yeah, all progressing very well. So I'm going to pause there. I'm going to hand back to Nick, but thanks for listening on that and happy to pick up any questions.
Great, thanks, David. I think you're going to be a busy man in the next few years listening to that. Fantastic. Well, let's hear from some of our other players in the sector. So, Michaela, you've been working on technologies in this sector for 25 years, I believe. So can you tell us some more and tell us about where you see the opportunities for growth?
Yeah, so the hydrogen economy is a huge growth opportunity because we're starting from quite a low base. So there's some massive opportunities, as David mentioned there, in decarbonising industry. So industrial generation of power and use of hydrogen in different processes to decarbonise the hard to reach processes like steel and cement making. We're working with some commercial partners on those types of projects here in the Midlands. And then there's also the blending hydrogen into the gas pipeline. There's a massive opportunity and relatively easy and quick win in that you can blend up to 20% hydrogen into gas pipelines without much interference of the gas usage at appliance level. And then the hydrogen vehicles. So many people will understand that hydrogen vehicles now are available, and buses, HGVs, private vehicles, as well as trains and planes moving towards the concept of hydrogen. So if anybody wants to lease a hydrogen vehicle, Adelan's leasing Toyota vehicles at the moment. So we're making them available to the public. And really what these local projects, regional projects are able to do is a ground level approach and opening up the market to real consumers to promote hydrogen as a commodity, and then the products that use hydrogen as commodities as well. And I think that's where it becomes really exciting, and we see that quite close now. We've got a hydrogen station in Birmingham, for example. It's just opened up, and that just allows for the hydrogen economy to start rolling out. So it's relatively new, but it's got this huge growth opportunity. Great,
thank you. So Amma, you're working with lots of businesses at the concept stage. Can you tell us about what you're seeing in terms of innovation and opportunities for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think when we really start to work with some of these businesses, we defined it by their need. So that's the first sort of point of call, define that business need. And sometimes it's not always about research and development. Sometimes it is about those other aspects. So we define under certain thematic areas. So if there's a business focused thematic area, which is about establishing that innovation need, so we will work through a TRL level based approach through the suite of equipment and the expertise that we have within the centre. So our centre has been established through a series of strengths around electrochemistry, surface engineering, chemistry, engineering and business innovation. So the way we've supported businesses is we've run programs with some of these businesses to identify the scope and potential of hydrogen fuel cell technology for their business. Given the fact that the low carbon environmental goods sector within Greater Manchester is buoyant and strong, we've developed a series of these businesses that are now advancing ambitions through various different disciplines. I mean, you're going to hear from Paul shortly, and Paul's one of those businesses that we've supported. And in terms of what that business requirement also needs is to help with deployment scenarios across the region. So when we have deployment focused thematic areas, that says that how do we take those organizations through that journey? So if we have a regional partner who we will support, how do they develop out their ambitions around hydrogen fuel cells? Because there's a wider ambition around net zero. So what role is hydrogen going to play within their wider net zero ambitions? And given the fact that Greater Manchester is quite a landlocked region and the majority of hydrogen projects are in the wider northwest, how does that apply to projects in Greater Manchester? Well, we're seeing that now because we've developed a consortium and we are going to develop a green hydrogen facility at Trafford Park. So it's very near to the Highnet facility, as David alluded to earlier. That's perfect because it can feed into the Highnet project eventually, but it also provides, as Michaela mentioned, the opportunity for those businesses we've supported to see, all right, I'm developing innovation in this area. I can now see a market within my region. So they're going to invest and it's going to unlock that investment for them. But from basic market testing through to getting them through the TRL level stage will involve a lot more work and a lot more activity. We're very well equipped to do TRL level 1, arguably to about 3 or 4. But now we need to advance those businesses we've supported and many more to take them through the rest of those TRL levels. So I think that's what we've experienced with some of these businesses is they all want to work under these certain thematic areas where it isn't just all about hydrogen. It's about fuel cells, it's about sustainable fuels. Is there an opportunity for sustainable fuels now? It's about smart energy systems and energy transition technology. It's about working them all up. And then how do we deliver that for them to actually be able to sell that product? So it is challenging, but very rewarding for them, for the businesses.
Yeah, okay, thanks. I mean, you mentioned Paul in your comments there. So Paul, can you tell us about what you've been prototyping and why First Graphene chose the Northwest to locate?
Okay, thanks, Nick. I'll start with your second point first, because that'll set the scene, and then talk about what we're prototyping. So, as I mentioned earlier, First Graphene, we're an Australian company, but we specifically chose to set ourselves up in Manchester about, well, it will be 3 years ago, and we started with a team of 3, and we've actually expanded to a crew now. I've got 7 people working for us based out of Manchester. So we have shown our growth, and through the COVID period, actually, we recruited 2 more scientists into our company. So why Manchester? Well, the first thing is it's graphene and the ecosystem that it brings here. And as you can see from from the panel, we get access to the full system. So we've got the likes of Amr and his specialist facility at the Fuel Cell Innovation Centre, where we can develop our technology onto the potential to work with or find out more about the big multinational government level national projects like the Highnet Project. So it's all within a very localized area. And the thing that I really enjoy about being based here is we've licensed some technology for this specific case from the University of Manchester, from their chemistry department. First Graphene based at the Graphene Engineering Centre, right in the centre of Manchester, and we're working with the Fuel Cell Innovation Centre, and all are within walking distance of each other. So even throughout the COVID period, we've managed to maintain and build these relationships. And I'm really excited about when things open up fully so we can do more face-to-face work. But that local ecosystem and the ability to work with people in a close proximity is really valuable for us. And that's why, as an Australian company, we made this investment in Manchester specifically. So in terms of what we're doing, we've got an ongoing collaboration with Amr's team at the Fuel Cell Innovation Centre, where we're testing the performance of a novel hybrid graphene platelet in polymer electrolyte fuel cells. And this technology itself was licensed from the University of Manchester, and we did some initial work at the bench scale in our labs but we're not fuel cell specialists. So that's where we got into the relationship with Amer and his team. And we're looking at how we actually do the proof of concept for the technology. And the initial results have been really positive. So we've been really pleased with that. And that's unlocked some additional funding to take this forward. So it's novel technology to our company. We get access to capabilities that we don't have. We're a small company, we're an SME, so we're limited in what we can do and support. And it basically means that we can prototype new technologies at the lower TRL levels. But then the really exciting thing about being based in this region and with this ambitions is if these things work, then we've got a route to upscaling up the TRL levels and working with the wider ecosystem here to get things moving as quickly as possible.
Fantastic. So whether you're working on a mega project like David, or you're at the SME level like our other panelists, or somewhere in the middle, government support's obviously going to be key, especially in the early stage of this, as this sector as it evolves. So government's hydrogen strategy is late, it's promised. I did think about having a sweepstake as to what date it might be published. But maybe if I can invite all of the panel, maybe starting with David, to comment on what you're hoping to see in that strategy when it comes out.
Yeah, sure. So there's a slight danger that the longer you wait, the more expectant you get, and then you end up being sort of slightly underwhelmed. Now, I don't think we are going to be underwhelmed, I think is my sense. There is a huge amount of government momentum behind the hydrogen and low carbon agenda at the moment. I've been in various sessions with sort of ministerial level, and they are massively engaged and excited. And I think a good deal of that will flow into the strategy. And it is a sort of techno-economic strategy. There's also a level of, I think, political positioning of Britain post-Brexit here as well, because we are seeing national strategies for a range of other countries around hydrogen, and the UK is very keen to get out there and compete on the global sort of stage in hydrogen, which I think is great. I think for us, sort of as one generic and then a number of specifics, I think generically what we want to see is government recognition of hydrogen's role in the broader energy system as an enabler of a full low carbon economy, not just in a series of niche applications here and there, but fundamentally you need hydrogen at scale if you're going to get to net zero. Electricity will not do it all by itself. So recognition of that. And then I think in order for hydrogen to be successful, I think probably the best way of looking at it is to look back at what has worked in offshore wind over the last sort of decade or so, which has been a huge success story. And I draw out sort of 3 or 4 key points here. So first of all, set a clear ambition. Clear ambition is really, really important for big companies making investment decisions. Are they going to build a new factory in the UK, or are they going to build it in Germany, or are they going to build it in Denmark? Clear government ambition helps make those big investment decisions. Second thing we need is business models. You do not get to a low carbon economy for free. It needs to be paid for. A lot of these technologies are today more expensive than their carbon intensive equivalents. So there needs to be support frameworks in place. A lot of really, really good work being done by government on that. We need to see the next stage of evolution, moving from sort of concept through to actual practical deployment of those business models. You know, where are the contracts? Well, we can sign on a dotted line with government to get a support framework. I think the next area is about ongoing investment in research and development. And I think UK has done that very well in offshore wind. You know, BEIS have announced just in the last few days, another £60 million hydrogen research fund. They've announced a £240 million net zero hydrogen fund. We as Progressive have been in receipt of a lot of those government funding streams to this date, which has allowed Highnet to progress. So that needs to continue to progress to allow hydrogen to come down the cost curve. And then the last point really is you have to look at it from a whole system perspective. You can't just look at it from a production perspective or a use perspective. You need to be able to get the hydrogen from where it's produced to where it's used. So thinking about pipeline networks, storage, that integrated cross-train hydrogen ecosystem is really, really important. And that's something we do on Highnet. I think from a project perspective, we're probably slightly ahead of regulatory thinking on that. So it'd be good to be seeing sort of government ambition and regulatory thinking accelerate on that subject. But yeah, that's on my shopping list.
Great. Okay. And so, Paul, looking at it from the other end, what would you be looking for startups and SMEs?
So for us, honestly, this is a really great time to be working in this sector. There's a lot of support available at the regional and national level. As an Australian-based company, we've put out a number of announcements on some of the work we've been doing through the Australian Stock Exchange, but the level of interest that we get both internationally and also locally it's been amazing. So one of the things with having a UK hydrogen strategy is it kind of sets a direction for us and sets some focus on what we're doing. And as an Australian company, it allows us to cross-reference what the UK is doing against other countries and look at the ambitions. In terms of what we'd like to see, it's the different levels of funding available and support for companies, both at the national and the regional level. So at the national level, that gives us ability to funding for the larger, longer term projects. So we've been lucky enough to get a grant from the Sustainable Innovation Fund that's supported development on one new technology for hydrogen production. And we've just about completed a really successful project in that field. But also equally important, perhaps more important, is the regional funding. So that's where we came across the Amir and his team at the Fuel Cell Innovation Centre. So developing things at the local level is really, really helpful because that allows us to take quick decisions. It's almost like you've got the authority for the spend delegated downwards, so we can decide whether something's a good idea and then get decisions made quickly and go off and do things, form those relationships. And it's almost like you can test quickly, fail fast if you need to. But being able to get things going and go to proof of concept very quickly is important for us, especially given that we're at 2021 now, 2025 and 2030 are going to come really quickly. So I think that the pace at which we need to do research and development and scale up to bring things from concept scale right up to the higher TRL levels, that pace is going to accelerate.
Okay, thanks. So turning to Amr, to what extent has the regions of us in the northwest been pressing government for what should be in that new strategy?
So I think that the regions have really pushed this agenda forward, and I think the regions all of the UK have really pushed this agenda forward. I think we as a collective northwest, there's some fantastic investable projects already ready to go, as David sort of mentioned. Heinet's one of them. Michaela will mention some of the others in Midlands. But I think from our perspective, how we supported businesses and a lot of the influence we developed a Greater Manchester version of the hydrogen strategy. So we called it Hydrogen Fuel Cell Strategy for Greater Manchester, which was seen as a precursor to the launch of the national strategy, because we want the national strategy to underpin regional demand. Now that regional demand says that the academic institutions want to develop out research opportunities that the hydrogen strategy will bring. There's partners across the region that want to be able to unlock potential infrastructure projects around transport or buildings. They're waiting for that strategy to develop. That will have some sort of research ambition around. And for Paul's benefit, we are kind of sat in the middle because we support large industrial partners, we support smaller SME partners. So we really are looking forward to that translational element of that research that we will do with businesses like Paul. See, how does that really fit within the strategy that is being suggested? Because I think David's right. I think it is going to be ambitious and I think it is going to play alongside. But I think we've got to develop all of these things alongside. There's no point developing the strategy that focuses on infrastructure without giving any consideration to the skills that need to be developed alongside it, because our largest strength in the UK is our people. We talk about we are global leaders in wind technology, but the amount of that wind technology wasn't how much of it was actually developed through innovation in the UK, or how many people are working in that wind sector. Yes, now a lot, but when it started off, we've got a real opportunity with this hydrogen strategy to really be a global leader in all of those areas. So if we are helping to inform the pathway of some of the future graduates or the existing workforce, I think this strategy has got a real potential to really work alongside those key infrastructure projects like Highnet and others across the UK that will allow people who are looking for work or people who are thinking, well, if government's banning petrol diesel vehicles and it's going to be about hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, electric vehicles, I know which area I should potentially focus in. And I think that adoption and the adaptation of the skills pathway will probably look like electrical engineering by itself is not going to be enough anymore. You need to be an electrical engineer with something else. Don't know what that something else is, but I think that something else is going to come from industry and academia and local government all working together to inform national plans.
Okay, thanks, Amma. So, Michaela, I know your focus is commercialising tech generally. What are you looking for? What sort of support are you looking for from government?
So really, probably coordination and leadership on the hydrogen strategy, because actually, as the other panelists have said, we've got all the right ingredients in the UK. That's not the issue. It's coordinating those and playing to our strengths. And actually, at this point, we have very advanced manufacturing sector. We're able to scale things in a way. Look at the vaccine. We were able to scale things in a way that other countries just can't. And we need to be doing that for green technologies. And that's really from my perspective, because I'm more technology focused rather than fuel focused. So I'm much more interested on the demand side as well with fuel cells and products that will use the hydrogen or hydrogen derived or hydrogen included fuel. Then I'm really interested in supply chains, and that the supply chain to fuel cells and other hydrogen technologies really need to be seeded and rooted now. That is beginning around the world. There are only a couple of mass manufacturers of fuel cells, for example, around the world. But we know that as David said, hydrogen and fuel cells will be part of this portfolio of green tech that delivers net zero, which is now law. So we have to be focusing on developing those technologies here, then scaling those technologies up. And with scaling up, you bring and drive the cost down, and that's when it becomes really able to penetrate the market. So that's what I would be looking for leadership on supply chains in particular. For example, the automotive sector. What happens when the diesel engines are not being produced, or they've been regulated out of the market? So we have to be ready for that, and that will bring with it the potential for inward investment to the UK. As a fuel cell business, over 25 years, we have relied upon inward investment. We know it's possible, and the 3 long-term value fuel cell businesses in the UK have all got that model of attracting inward investment. So we know it can work, and scaling it, as Amma said, has a great potential to repurpose existing industries and skills and deliver the carbon reductions that we require, as well as improving air quality as well. So it's an added bonus. So I'd really be looking for the government to support supply chains.
Okay. Well, thanks, Michaela. So at this point, I might just turn to our audience and invite any questions to be put through on the chat. We'll hopefully find a couple of minutes for Q&A at the end of the session, if that's okay. But you mentioned supply chain there, Michaela. This takes us maybe on to our next point about getting some scale to this, scaling up this sector in the Northwest. Turning to David, what do you see as the bigger challenges about bringing that scale? Is it around supply chain development, or what else? What else might it be?
Yeah, so the big challenge for the hydrogen economy has been the whole sort of supply-demand chicken and egg conundrum, really. No one has wanted to go out and invest in a hydrogen car if they can't get any hydrogen to put in it. Equally, no one's wanted to actually produce lots of hydrogen if there's not lots of hydrogen cars to put it into. So we're very much hoping that Highnet will break that sort of conundrum, that dichotomy. Because essentially we're anchoring our hydrogen supply on industrial demand, but once you've got that hydrogen infrastructure, it provides low cost, low carbon hydrogen at the point of use, and that's what then unlocks all the technology development on the demand side. So it allows new fuel cell sort of technologies to be developed, to be tested at scale, to be rolled out at scale. So I think for me, if you get the supply side right and can build out a project like Highnet, then all the downstream demand side stuff can flow much more quickly than it otherwise would have done. And I think a good example of that is, there's some big gas turbine manufacturers around the world who all want to be able to run on hydrogen. Their biggest problem is being able to test their gas turbines on hydrogen because there isn't enough hydrogen anywhere. So, if we can provide sufficient hydrogen to allow product technologies, etc., to be tested and developed, that's how you then develop a supply chain and value chain. So that would be our proposition.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. Yes, Michaela, so how would the public sector best support investment and expansion?
So one of the key roles that they can do is synchronizing supply and demand, because obviously, let's look at vehicle fleets, for example, publicly operated vehicle fleets. Then if they move to hydrogen or at least include hydrogen as a proportion of their fleet, then suddenly you've got big demand. If you have, well, we've seen how contracts for difference have made such a significant impact on the feasibility commercialisation of wind in the UK. We have to be looking at contracts for difference for hydrogen generation, but also in hydrogen use as well. Because if you put in a carbon commitment into contracts, then people will have to meet them and then have to look. Certainly some will have to look at hydrogen as a solution. So I think that's those are two ways, but the final way is infrastructure projects. So we have HS2. This is a great opportunity to decarbonise construction, to decarbonise rail, and then also things like we've got the Commonwealth Games coming. I'm sure there are lots of public programs that could be really focused on delivering decarbonisation. So I'd like to see public sector committing to that. There's a steep learning curve they have to go up. That's the issue at the moment. It's not really that the technology is not there. It's not because of the commercial aspects. It's more to do with getting that information over to people, and events like this are important in doing that. Yeah. And informing people what the options are. And that's one of the things we feel is really important. Showing people, as AMA does, this is possible. This may work for you. Come and have a look. Is this something that we can roll out at scale?
Yeah, okay. So turning to Paul, so to take your business and put some scale to that and expand, what would you need? What would you be looking for?
Well, there's a number of things. First thing is, I thought Michaela made a really good point about options. And one of the things is, as a small company, we get a lot of approaches from people with different potential technologies to work with. So, for example, the technology that we're working with the University of Manchester, where they've got some licensed novel technology on developing electrocatalysts. So there are lots of options, and there are lots and lots of things that we could be working on to take forward. And I'd really love to have the time and the bandwidth to do so. We are an SME, and we've got a small team, but we've got a lot of energy and enthusiasm, but there's only so much we can do. So one of the things that we really appreciate are the relationships that we can build locally, regionally, nationally with people like AMA, potentially with Michaela and David, where we can look at how we take things from the concept stage, scale them up, but also look at where our endpoint is and make sure that commercially and at scale it makes sense to do so that we're not wasting time. We're trying to use our resources as efficiently as possible. So for us, it's really having the ability to grow our business, so add new skilled talents onto our team, and being able to get that ideally locally within the Northwest. Like I say, it's one of the reasons why we located here. And when we've gone out for recruiting people, we've been amazed at the quality of the graduates and the people that come to us asking about job opportunities. And honestly, I'd love to employ them all, but obviously you can't. But it's really being focused on what we can do and having the support as well from the of the government or as many or from funders, just because it is going to take time. And what we really need is the ability to almost take things from idea stage, scale them up as quickly as possible, almost get it through that gray area where you're in between taking things from that exciting conceptual stage and doing the almost like the grunt work to look at how you scale it up and incorporate it into real life systems and infrastructure, and being able to fund that and resource that appropriately, I think for us is really important. The final thing, and I think we will touch on it, but it's a point that Amma made and David made is the timescale. So what's really interesting is we're in 2021 now, but I guess we need to be thinking about developing the skill sets for the people who are going to be running these technologies in another 10 years. So I guess these are the scientists and the technologists of almost like today who we need to start bringing on. So I suppose, Amy, you're probably a lot more closer to it through your links with the university than I am, but that's something that, I feel passionate about, giving people the best chance now to succeed.
Indeed. So, I mean, skills has been mentioned a couple of times. Amma, what's the importance of skills in getting scale?
I think when we first started to look at hydrogen in Greater Manchester, that was back in 2013. So we looked at what was the art of possible before hydrogen, and we've ended up with a fantastic facility that is supporting many businesses. But alongside that, we really wanted to develop that skills aspect. Now, given the fact that when we look at the curriculum, hydrogen fuel cells are mentioned as an exam question or a part of chemistry or a part of physics, I think that had to change. So what we have done is we've developed Europe's first targeted program of hydrogen education, and that's a set of resources that are available freely online that have been developed by us and partners across 5-6 different countries, which thousands of teachers and thousands of students from the age of 13 through to 18 use on a daily basis. We start from there because it's got to be starting from school. Then it's about working with those industrial partners who, because a lot of the intelligence is held within those industrial partners. So, we're talking about gas boilers, those organizations who hold that knowledge, bring that knowledge out of them, develop that knowledge with them. But I don't think it should just be about hydrogen. Then you start talking about people looking for jobs, our graduates or people in existing jobs. They need certain levels of information to make investment decisions. At the moment, we've got people making investment decisions about technologies within local authorities that probably know nothing about net zero. And that's a fact, that's been happening for a number of years. So that skills pathway has to involve everyone. We've already looked at the schools as a great example for the hydrogen part. Then we've got to start and work with all of the universities, all of the FE colleges, all of the schools effectively, the training companies, and then look at that skills pathway from level 1 all the way through to level 8. So level 8 is effectively your postgraduate type courses, the specialist type courses, but it's about working with those industries and then aligning the expertise within different academic institutions to work with specific industries to develop those courses. That's what we effectively need, but those courses need to be developed alongside the infrastructure, because we've got people looking now, and we've probably got, the pandemic has taught us one thing. We've got 2 years worth of school graduates, college graduates, and university graduates that have probably missed out on quite a lot of work experience. We've got to be able to fulfill that requirement as one thing, but there's a lot of skills work going on across the UK, and this isn't about starting from scratch, because a lot of skills work has already been done. And again, we talk about this topic of hydrogen, we talk about this topic of fuel cells. Both have been around for a long, long time. They've been in science books for a long, long time. They've been in periodic tables since its inception. We need to talk about the skills pathway, about how this is developed alongside something that is tangible. So if there are infrastructure projects coming up, the Highnet and others, that's all about £4 billion of investment in the Northwest. Critically, for those people looking for work or looking to be retrained, they need to know when they should develop those skills. The employers are saying the same thing. The biggest part of our employer workshop, and we're designing it in such a way that it's based on task-based outcomes. The largest part of that is what everyone on this panel has alluded to. It's communication. The fact that the industries are there saying, we know we need to do something about it. We just haven't really done anything about it, but we'll talk about the infrastructure. All of the claims for jobs alongside infrastructure probably need to be checked and double checked and then refined, because it's not all about the scientists. It's about those economists. It's about potentially psychologists, business innovation specialists. The list is endless. Maybe some artists to ensure that hydrogen is seen in a much more cleaner way, because even now we've all talk about hydrogen, but we still get the questions. Oh, it's Hindenburg. It's this, it's that, and we've just got to get over that misconception.
Okay, well, thanks, Emma. So we've just got a couple of moments left. I'm going to pose one question to the panel before we sort of wrap up with ask them what their top priority is for the sector in one word or one sentence. That question is, we're talking about the Northwest here today, but are we competing with the other regions in the UK? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'll give you a view on that. We are competing and we shouldn't be. So we need all of the regions to progress hydrogen solutions over the next sort of 12, 18, 24 months. At the moment, government is running a process which is called cluster sequencing, which essentially is competing clusters against each other, different regions, and they aim to pick at least 2 of those to proceed. Now, in reality, I don't think that's a very sensible way of getting to net zero, and I think wider industry shares that view, but that's a process which we're going through at the moment.
Okay, no, that's interesting insight. Okay, so last minute or so. Okay, what's your top priority for your area of the hydrogen economy? Either a word or a sentence. Starting with Paul.
I'd say it's a point that's we've all raised. It's communication. It's getting that message out about the importance of what we're doing, and linked to what we've just been talking about, seeing it as it's almost like a national or it's an international thing. Global warming and climate change is something that affects us all, something that we're all talking about. And this is a really great example of a really good project to take it forward. So we should all be talking about it, even those not involved in the project, you know, those in homes and communities. It's massive for the country and for the world. So we should all be getting into it and supporting it.
She'll do it. Amma, one word, one sentence.
Just it's easy. Ensure that the supply side match the downstream side effectively matches the supply side, because that's critically important, because that involves everything.
David?
It's time to sweat the detail. We need to move from arm-wavy ambition to real clarity and detail on regulatory structures, commercial structures. How is this all actually going to happen?
Yeah, Michaela?
Investment. So investment to have to go into genuine green investments now, and ESG and CSR, so environmental social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, really have to mean something, and that investments must follow.
Fantastic, very insightful. Well, I'd like to thank all of you for that discussion. Really useful, really insightful. I'm hoping the audience out there similarly have enjoyed it. Do feel free to get in touch with any of the panel or myself afterwards if there's any follow-up. Otherwise, thank you very much, and let's finish there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not only are we one of the most important industrial clusters, we also emit a lot of carbon. And therefore it's critical that the business leaders in our region respond and step up to this net zero challenge. Because of our unique combination of both industry and geology, we have the chance to be the global leader in clean energy, clean hydrogen, and carbon capture and storage.
Highnet Northwest are looking at decarbonising the northwest area by the development of the hydrogen distribution network that will allow companies and industries like ours at Intergen to move from carbon emissions to green energy using hydrogen. Starting in 2025, Highnet Northwest will store and capture carbon, and they'll start to replace fossil fuel gas with clean hydrogen. This will set the northwest of England and North Wales on the path to zero emissions, creating and also protecting jobs.
So, why hydrogen? Hydrogen is an abundant element. It's clean, safe, and releases no carbon dioxide when burned. This makes it a flexible alternative to fossil fuels. And when the wind isn't blowing, or the sun isn't shining, it can be stored, ready to generate energy when renewables can't. We can easily convert the existing systems used to generate heat and electricity, which currently run on fossil fuel gas, to hydrogen, providing a safe transition to a decarbonised world.
The Highnet Northwest carbon capture scheme is going to allow us to capture up to 800,000 tonnes of CO2 per year, which is a really impressive amount.
Here in North Wales, we're really excited and proud to be the first cement plant in the UK to be part of the carbon capture and storage scheme. This is really revolutionary for our business.
Highnet Northwest is based on the production of hydrogen from natural gas. This gas will be fed into the UK's first low-carbon hydrogen plant at the Stanlow Manufacturing Complex, where it will be split into hydrogen and carbon dioxide. The carbon dioxide will be transported underground through a pipeline. Here, it will join carbon dioxide directly captured from other sites across North West England and North Wales. This includes industry such as CF Fertilisers Ince plant, which makes ammonia for fertiliser, and Hanson's Padeswood Works, which makes cement, as well as other products essential in our day-to-day lives. This carbon dioxide will be safely and permanently stored beneath the seabed in Liverpool Bay. At the same time, clean hydrogen will be distributed via new pipelines, replacing fossil fuels to power our industry, heat our homes, and fuel our vehicles. Hydrogen will be stored in underground salt caverns in Cheshire, similar to those currently used to store natural gas, ready to manage peaks in demand.
Well, Highnet Northwest is a real opportunity. In fact, it's a game changer for Warrington and the Northwest. As the UK responds to the global climate emergency, it's important we all play our part to decarbonise whilst retaining our strong industrial economy.
Highnet Northwest is really vital, and the work to start getting to net zero by 2050 really needs to begin now. Highnet Northwest offers an opportunity for prosperity in the future low-carbon economy.
Highnet Northwest is essential to the businesses in this region. It's also critical to ensure that we are an attractive investment location. We are developing in green skills for the green industrial revolution happening now.
In addition to fuelling industry, this project's going to make enough hydrogen to fuel 2 million homes. It's going to revolutionise how we travel around the city region, how we heat our homes and how we fuel industry, things that are going to make our region thrive.
Highnet Northwest is already breaking new ground with its innovative approach. This is putting the northwest of England and North Wales at the forefront of this revolution. This is an unmissable opportunity.